During yesterday's devotional, I mentioned that one of the quirks of our Reformed tradition is that we put a greater emphasis on glorifying God than we do on our own personal salvation. As evidence of that, I mentioned a question that allegedly used to be asked of candidates for ministry during their examinations by Presbyterian. The question was, would you be willing to be damned to hell for the glory of God? One viewer, Stephen, reacted quite negatively to that comment, saying it was a dumb question, should be eliminated, and explains why people are leaving the church. I thought his comment would be worth pursuing today, in part because I agree with him, but only in part. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. So I think there are at least three things going on here. One is the question of hell. What is it? Is it a physical place? And how much emphasis do we put on it? A second is the hypothetical question raised by the old ordination question, would anyone being condemned to hell actually serve God's glory? And perhaps most important, what is driving the decline in church membership in our country and around the world anyway? And what, if anything, should we do about it? Hang around most Presbyterian churches and you'll be hard-pressed to hear much from the pulpit about hell. Why is that? Well, there are a couple of things going on here. First, ours is not a tradition that has ever trafficked much in scaring people into belief. We haven't traditionally spent much time warning people that they would go to hell if they didn't make a confession of faith in Jesus Christ. That's because we emphasize God's glory and God's sovereign choice prior to any human response on our part. We simply believe in God's inherent goodness and majesty, quite apart from anything God does for us, which happens to be considerable, by the way. Scaring people into believing is nothing more than a cheap appeal to fear, and ours is not a fear-based tradition. But is there a hell? Well, sure. The more interesting question is, what is hell? And that is a bit of a moving target. Scripture itself speaks of it in different ways. In some places, it's really more like the common place of the dead. In other places, it is where the souls of the condemned or the damned go for eternal punishment. In Matthew and Mark, hell is associated with unquenchable fire, but in 2 Peter, it is associated simply with deep darkness. Beyond that, tradition also speaks of hell not only as a place of punishment in the next life, but as a condition we can experience in this life. When we use the phrase a living hell, well, that's what we're talking about. Misery in this life, which we all experience from time to time. Only in this case, it's not so much a punishment, but a condition. Finally, whatever imagery is used to describe hell, it really boils down to this: separation from God. The good news is that we are never so far removed from God that God cannot reach us and redeem us. That's what is referred to in 2 Peter when Jesus, after his crucifixion but before the resurrection, preached to the souls in prison. It's also what is meant in Psalm 103, which says, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and do not forget all his benefits, who also forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit." As for the second part of Stephen's comment, that the old ordination question about being willing to be damned to hell for the glory of God is dumb and should be removed, well, no one ever seriously asks that question anymore. Today it's used mostly as a punchline. As far as it goes, his objection is right, though. God's glory is not served by anyone being damned to hell. But I think he misses the underlying point. The old question is rhetorical and points to our belief as Reformed Christians that we are more concerned with what God is doing in the world around us than we are about our own salvation. And that's really saying something, for we human beings are pretty egocentric by nature, and we pretty much are always concerned with the question, what's in it for me, whatever it is. Reformed faith encourages us to look beyond ourselves and to look what God calls us to do in this world to bring about God's redeeming purposes in the world. Finally, why is the Christian church on the decline in America and around the world in many places? There are several theories about that, and scholars and pundits alike are debating it furiously. It is an area that is tailor-made for confirmation bias to cloud our judgment. Confirmation bias, if you're not familiar with it, is the well-established tendency for us to accept information that affirms our beliefs and biases. That is, we are more likely to accept information that agrees with our beliefs and reject information that tends to undermine our preconceived notions. And it is something, by the way, we all do. It is what tends to drive the cultural echo chamber in which we live. But we do know enough to form at least some preliminary hypotheses about the shrinking of the church. Stephen suggests that one reason people are leaving the church has something to do with Christian beliefs that are simply offensive. Talking about a God who would be glorified by my condemnation to hell is a good example, and I think he's right. But of course, there is more to it than that. Much more. I'll devote a series on those reasons later, but in the meantime, let me thank Stephen for his comment to yesterday's devotional. Thoughtful comments are always welcome. And let me simply conclude by underlining something I am proud of in our tradition, and that is that we make at least an attempt to place God and God's will and ways in the world above our own personal interests. Are we always successful? Not on your life, but it is a worthy aspiration. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.